Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast, wherever you are in the world. I've actually got a fellow Austinite with me today, Namaan, and he is a no nonsense executive and coach, and he's teaching leaders how to get more done in less time through business storytelling. He's no stranger to the show. I'm really happy to have him on. We're going to talk all about communication, coaching, influence, and really happy to have him on. Namaan, welcome.
Christopher, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure when I get to chat with a fellow Austinite.
Yeah, one of the greatest cities in the world. And briefly introduce yourself and how you got to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, I started my career in the political world. And so you look at the headlines every day or every week that politics drives everything that we do. The actions of the government have an effect on all of our lives. And so I started my career there and really saw the value that clear communication has both in the election realm and also in the policy realm. When you are trying to get voters to agree with your stance or your party stance versus another party stance, or when you're even trying to get legislators on the same page, the difference between losing and winning is often clarity of communication. And I started my career there. I actually still advise political campaigns today on messaging. I left there and had a short stint in the nonprofit world. Again, when you're a nonprofit and funding and attention are up for grabs, how do you capture a scarce resource? It's through the power of storytelling and it's through clear communication. I then left there, did my own consulting for a while, and landed at Management Consulted, which is the company I help lead today. I've been here for over a decade, and I've helped build our executive communication and top-down problem-solving training program, which has been rolled out at multiple Fortune 500 companies now. And so that's just a little bit about me, where I come from, and why I'm passionate about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll start with the big picture overview. When clients come to work with you, like what is your avatar? What is their pain point, frustration, or what is their greatest aspiration or desire to get them to work with you?
Absolutely. Their biggest pain point is that they're not able to gain the buy-in they're looking for or motivate the action they're looking for. And so I know a lot of your audience, Christopher, for example, are physicians. I grew up in a family of physicians. I have family members that run doctors' offices today. They're the lead physician in their office. And even in that setting, they're interfacing with multiple different kinds of stakeholders. They have patients, they have peers, they have business leadership, they have boards, they have reps that they're interfacing with externally. There's a lot of multiple stakeholders, diverse stakeholders that they have to manage. And so no matter what profession you're in, no matter what career path you're in, the difference to me between success and maybe less success is the ability to gain buy-in and motivate action. We are all, whether we realize it or not, whether we like it or not, we're all salespeople. We're all salespeople for our ideas. We're all salespeople for our own approach. We're all salespeople for what we think is the best thing to do. And the clients that come to me, the teams that come to me, the individuals that come to me, they say, I'm tired of being looked at as an analyst. I want to be seen as an advisor. So I want to be seen as an advisor inside of my own organization. I want to be seen as an advisor with my clients, with my prospects. And so storytelling is the way that you shift that perspective that people have of you from being just someone who can share information to being someone who can share insights.
Interesting. A follow-up question I have for you is just lay the groundwork because you've worked in politics and also corporate nonprofits. And there's another guest I was talking to yesterday, and he's also a leadership management consultant. And we're talking about this disconnect. There's just lack of connection. Like, just people don't trust CEOs, they don't trust leaders, they don't trust government. And there's like when the world is going to shit, they're like living the high life. So what is the problem there with, and how can we solve it?
So that's a deep question. I don't think we have the time today to unpack it fully, but I will say this. All communication, whether it's political communication or business communication, needs to be oriented around your audience. And so the big mistake that I see people making who are in the public eye is that they're talking about what they care about more than what their audience cares about.
Mm.
And the first rule of executive communication is to identify, who am I talking to? What do I want them to do? And why will they or won't they do that thing? And if you can't answer those three questions, then you by definition can't be a clear or effective communicator.
And what are the most common communication mistakes you see even in the smartest leaders today?
Yeah. So one of them I just mentioned, which is, hey, I'm going to talk about what I care about, regardless of what my audience thinks. That's number one. I think in a professional setting, like this is especially true for those who are listening that are in professional services. So whether you're a lawyer, a consultant in corporate strategy, what have you, I think the worst mistake that you can make in that kind of setting is surprising your peers or surprising your clients. So
Mm,
that is the cardinal sin. You will have very gifted communicators walk into a room and share a message or a story that hasn't been pre-vetted, hasn't that they haven't seeded support for ahead of time. And so they think their charisma, they think their evidence base can carry the day. But when you surprise someone to that degree, it doesn't really matter how charismatic you are. It doesn't always matter even how strong your evidence base is. You have to learn how to build rapport and build consensus in a collaborative way. And then the last thing that I'll just say in terms of big mistakes that I see leaders make in terms of communication is that they think communication is about what they look and what they sound like. And a recent study published in Harvard Business Review talked about how 76% of our perceived credibility is derived from the structure of our communication, and only 24% of that perceived credibility is derived by the content of our communication. And
mm,
so a lot of leaders I know spend 95% of their time focused on content and only 5% of their time focused on structure. Where if they first figured out how they wanted to structure their communication, the content would naturally fall into place. And so those three questions that I mentioned earlier, Christopher, who's my audience? What do I want them to do coming out of this interaction? And why will they or won't they do it? That's how you start to structure your communication and determine the right content to include.
Interesting. The other thing that I noticed, I've been out of the corporate world for almost 9 years now. And the one thing that I found very amusing was every time there's something, it's like a platitude, or you hear people on TV and the news, they're just like sounding robotic and rehearsed and just talking non sequiturs. So how do you help leaders communicate clearly without sounding robotic or rehearsed?
Yeah. So the short answer, Christopher, is it's practice. And one of the things that when I work with clients one on one and we're working on big presentation prep or communication prep, one of the things that we'll do is we'll put a high level script together that's not word for word what you should say, but bullet points that act as signposts as you're talking. And so when you don't have a script to lean on, it forces you to be less robotic by nature. You are betting on yourself in that environment and saying, okay, I know the theme of what I want to say here. And I'm going to trust that I'm enough of a subject matter expert to be able to fill in the gaps in real time. So that's number one. And then number two, for people who use slides, I find that often their slides actually lead them to being poor presenters because the slides are overpacked. There's too much data, there's too much messaging happening on one slide. The title isn't clear. And so when you have something that you're presenting that can be interpreted 9 different ways, it's going to be way more difficult for you to clearly present that slide. And number one, it's not relying on a script. And number two, it's making sure that the collateral you're presenting is clear. And if the collateral is clear, then you're naturally going to end up becoming a clearer presenter of that collateral.
Interesting. So, anybody listening or viewing and they want to improve their communication skill, if there's only one thing to work on, it's April now, what should it be?
It should be hypothesis first or answer first communication. So, in a business or a professional setting, your job is to gain buy-in and motivate action. It's not to prove that you're right, and it's not even to prove that you did a lot of work. So a lot of people who come and work with me, their number one goal in their minds is I need to prove to my client or I need to prove to my boss that I've been working a lot. And one of the things that I have to tell them is nobody cares how much you're working. They just care if you can solve their problem or not. And so you need to shift the emphasis of your communication away from everything that you did to what the work that you did, how it matters and how it applies to the context of your stakeholders. And so if I don't kick off a meeting in the first 5 minutes by telling you, Christopher, why you're here and why it matters to you, I'm going to lose you because you've got limited attention span. And that's not just you, it's every human being on the planet, right? We have limited attention span. And the one question that everybody walks into a meeting or that everybody walks into an interaction asking in the back of their minds is so what? Right? Even your listeners in the probably the first 5 minutes of this episode, the subconscious question they're asking is so what? Does this episode apply to me? What's in it for me? Should I keep on listening? Yes or no? And if we didn't do a good job in the first 5 minutes of explaining what the focus of this episode is, they're going to tune out and they should. And the same is true in any professional environment.
Yeah. Earlier on in the conversation, what I really loved is you're taking it a next step, a next level. You're becoming a thought leader. And as a communication coach, how is what you do different than general leadership training?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say that my team and I, we're not just communication coaches, but we marry communication expertise with business acumen. And I think that's really our secret sauce is that we're able to dig in with our clients and say, okay, who are your stakeholders? What do you want them to do? And we've actually been on the other side of the table. I'm an executive leader today. I sit on the other side of the table all the time when external partners come to me or when my team comes to me asking for money, asking for alignment, asking for headcount. And so I'm able to put myself in the shoes of those stakeholders and say, look, here's why I would say no to you. Here are the questions that I would have for you. Here's the pushback that I would have for you. Now, I'm not just going to give you general platitudes that apply to your work, but let's actually dig into your story and start to address these objections that you're going to get before they come up. One of the big benefits and powers of spending a little bit more time curating your story ahead of a big interaction is that you're able to build a story that preemptively addresses the objections of your audience. And so you should know your audience well enough to know why they might say no. You should know the big things they need to believe to align with you. And then your story should address those factors before your audience has to ask you about them. And so that process we go through with our clients, and a big part of the reason we're able to do that is because we've sat on the other side of the table.
Yeah. The other question is sometimes people suffer from blind spots. And so, what are some symptoms that signify communication isn't working? And how can companies recognize that they need help and how can you help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just give you some symptoms, and it is very function dependent, Christopher. For example, when we work with revenue generating teams, some of the symptoms of poor communication are stagnating or declining revenue, are longer sales cycles, are interactions that are not driving to the next step that you want a prospect or a client to take. For folks that are working in account management, some of those symptoms are, you know what? I'm not able to get the data that I'm looking for from my clients or from my partners. You know what? I don't feel like my clients or my partners trust me. They don't trust that I have their best intentions in mind or that we're delivering on what our promises are. It's function dependent, but overall, some of the symptoms of poor communication are you have longer meetings than you need to, you have more meetings than you need to, and you are not consistently getting the alignment or the action that you're looking for from your stakeholders. So I'll give you an example that might be a little bit relevant for your audience. I work with a lot of sales teams inside of pharma, and one of their big stakeholder groups are physicians. And physicians are notorious for being incredibly busy. A rep comes. If I'm a physician, a rep is never the number one person I want to talk to. I have patients, I have other stakeholders that I need to deal with. So I've got 5 minutes in between appointments as I'm scarfing down lunch to talk to a rep. And one of the things that I work with these reps and with these sales teams on is okay, how do you communicate a message that's going to resonate with your physician audience in 2 to 3 to 5 minutes so that they give your drug or they give your solution a longer look. And so one of the things that our clients and our partners need to keep in mind is what's the action I want to drive from this specific interaction. I'm not going to in 5 minutes convince a physician to start prescribing my solution if it's the first 5 minute interaction that I've had with them. So my recommendation there is just, hey, we're worth taking a longer look at. We're worth your time to explore further. And if I can get them to agree with that, then that interaction has been a success.
The other question I have for you is now we're in the informational age and we're drowning in data. How do
Mhm.
you approach the subject of artificial intelligence when you're coaching leaders around communication and people are worried that their jobs are going to get lost and destroyed? How do you approach that?
Yeah. Artificial intelligence is a powerful tool, but because it's a tool, it means that you need to wield it. It should not control you. And so, to me, the number one skill that cannot be automated away is storytelling. It is the quintessential human skill. And so, can I go find data from artificial intelligence? Absolutely. Can I have an Excel model spit out data to me? Absolutely. And so, if you are a professional who does not know how to build a narrative behind the numbers, then yeah, why do I need you? So I need you for your perspective. I need you for your point of view. If I'm paying you six figures to be inside of a leader inside of my organization, if I'm paying you to be an advisor, which is what every leader I talk to tells me, like I want my team to tell me what to do. That's actually the sign of a healthy environment and a healthy culture, because it means that they want power to remain distributed inside of the organization. Inside of my organization, I don't want to make every decision because I'm not closest to the data on every single decision. I want my team to come to me and say, Namaan, here's what I think we should do, and here's why. I want them to retain that power and retain that ownership. And so if they come to me and they say, look at this spreadsheet or look at this AI output, make a decision, all they're doing is dumping data in my lap. And so why do I need them if there's a software, a program, or AI that can do the same thing? I'm paying them for their perspective on that data. I'm paying them for their insights. So if you can train yourself to not just share information, but share insights, if you can train yourself to, in every interaction possible, come with your point of view, then your role really cannot be automated away.
And what kind of results have you seen in clients that have benefited from your communication coaching and preparing for high stakes moments like board presentations and so on?
Yeah. So high level, Christopher, our clients have seen over $100 million in cumulative impact. That means that they've seen millions of dollars of additional revenue generated because we've worked with their revenue generating teams to clarify the story and clarify the value proposition for each customer segment that they're targeting. And it also means that they've unlocked efficiencies on the back end because they're having fewer meetings, they're having shorter meetings, and what used to take 6 months to approve now takes 30 days.
Mhm.
And so there's efficiencies that are unlocked on that side of the equation as well.
If people were listening to this, they want to connect with you, pick your brain, work with you, connect with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, a couple different ways that you can find me. I'm decently active on LinkedIn, so you can look me up by my name on LinkedIn, send me a message. I'm happy to respond to any questions that you have. You can also check out our company. Our company is called Management Consulted, and you go to managementconsulted.com. You'll learn more about us, more about some of the approaches and the frameworks we teach, more about some of the clients who we partner with, and you can find out more about how to get in touch with us at managementconsulted.com.
Yeah, excellent. I really enjoyed this conversation and really a lot of valuable insights and advice. And thanks so much for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.